All right, folks, welcome to our latest results for the month of May in regards to our trade alerts or signals that we provide within our free VIP. This is a trading room that is available for traders from all around the world who want to join and access my own trade alerts. As a trader, I love trading gold. So what I do is I share my trading ideas and my trade alerts into the group. And as a member, you can follow, copy, and profit from those signals. Now, if you're familiar with any of our work and previous updates, we have done amazingly well in regards to the quality of the signals provided so people can actually profit and make money from these trades. As a member, not only do you get access to my signals, but you also get access to our partner signals as well. So you could choose whether you want to follow my signals, our partner signals, or all of them, providing you with multiple options and multiple opportunities to profit in the gold market. As always, we're going to share with you the tally of all the trades you have taken for the month of May, breaking it down week by week so you can see the total wins, total losses, average win rates for the week, and total average for the month. But more importantly, to add transparency, we're also going to hop into the charts and go through each individual signal that we called out. That way you can verify when and where the trades were called out and validate the quality of our signals. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. And don't forget, in addition to signals, we also provide automation in addition to our signals, so you can make money from copying our signals while at the same time earning automated passive profits in the markets, where the trading is conducted for you while you copy our signals or go about your daily routine. So if you like what you see and you want to learn more about our signals and automation, you can visit our website down below. First week of May, we had an 86.1% win rate, winning 31 out of 35 trades, delivering over 4,000 pips in profit. Second week, 91.3% win rate, winning 21 out of 23 trades, delivering 2,900 pips in profit. 92.5% win rate for the third week, winning 25 out of 27 and over 4,800 pips in profit, followed by a 93% win rate for the last week, winning 15 out of 16, delivering over 2,500 pips in profit. In total, that's over 15,000 pips in profit, losing 840 pips from our losses, giving us a 90.9% average win rate for the month and over 14,300 pips in profit. So with a small account trading 0.01 lot sizes, that's 10 cents per pip. So at 14,340 pips for the month, that's over $1,400 in profit. At a 0.05 lot size, that's 50 cents per pip, which is the equivalent of over $7,000 in profit. If you were trading at a 0.10 lot size, that's $1 per pip. So at 14,340 for the month, that's $14,340. And for those with larger accounts or larger risk appetites, trading at a standard 1 lot size, that's $10 per pip. So at 14,340, that's over $143,000 for the month, just by simply following, copying, and profiting from our signals. But like I said before, anyone can write up numbers and boast about the numbers they delivered. So now let's take it a step further and let's hop in the charts and let's go through each trade that we called out. So starting off the month of May, on the 1st, we had a buy and a sell here in this area of the market. A buy at 32.22, here's that entry, and a sell at 32.26, here's that entry. Take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 60 pips on that buy. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 220 pips on that sell. And then we did a couple other sells at 32.13 and 32.22. Here's those two positions, which as you can see, both ended up in a loss. So not the best start of the month, but we did make up for it on the following day. On the 2nd, we started the day off over here with a couple of sells. A sell at 32.65 and a sell at 32.60. Here's that first entry and here's the second entry. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for both entries for 220 pips and 200 pips. And then we also threw in a buy at 32.46. Here's that entry where take profits 1 through 4 were hit for 160 pips. We decided to stop for the day since we were up almost 600 pips in profit, and then we resumed trading on the 5th. So on the 5th, we started off with a sell at 3,300 and 33.10. Here are those two entries, which as you can see, both resulted in a loss, but then we called out another sell at 33.18, where take profits 1 through 3 were hit for 100 pips. Then we did a buy at 33.19 and a sell at 33.27. So here's your entry for the buy and the entry for the sell. Take profits 1 through 3 were hit for 100 pips on the buy. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 220 pips on that sell. It was a quick entry, so we did one more buy at 33.13. Here's that entry where price consolidated, came close to our stop loss but didn't hit until eventually price rallied up, hit and take profits 1 through 5 for 220 pips. Then we did another sell at 33.09. Here's that entry, resulting in a small gain where take profit 1 was hit for 30 pips. We made an announcement of a slow but profitable month for the week where we had 2 losses and 5 wins. And then shortly after that, we called for a sell at 33.60. So here's that entry right over here where take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 70 pips. On the 6th, we started off with a series of buys, a buy at 33.75, and then price came down, testing that entry once again, so we called out for a second entry, and then another buy at 33.77. Here's the first entry, second entry, third entry, where take profits 1 through 5 were hit between 200 and 230 pips. Later on, we did a sell at 33.86, which resulted in another loss, followed by another buy at 33.92. Here's that entry, where take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 60 pips. Around midday, I announced that I was looking for a sell limit between 34.08 and 34.10, announcing that this was a risky setup. So if anyone was to take this trade, to use small lots. Once the trade was activated, price continued in drawdown and then started to reverse back to our entry. I wasn't liking the price action, so I announced that everyone should trail their stop loss to remove the risk from their trade. So as a result of breaking even, we didn't win this trade, but we also didn't lose any money from this trade. It basically just canceled itself out. And it was a good thing we did because, as you could see, as price progressed, it continued upward. So if we didn't manage this trade properly as we did, this would have resulted in a loss. But even though that trade didn't work out as we wanted it to, we made up for it by calling out for another buy at 33.80. Here's that entry where take profits 1 through 4 were hit for 200 pips. Now on the 7th, we started off with a couple of sells, a sell at 33.78 and 33.87. Here are the 2 entries, which as you can see, take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 80 pips on the first trade, and take profit 1 was hit for 30 pips on the second trade. After those 2 sells, we called out for a series of buys at 3.85, here's that entry, 33.73, here's that entry, and 33.73 again right here, here's that entry, and then another buy at 33.86, which I announced you could have set a buy limit. Here's that entry right here. As you can see from the chart and the announcements, take profits 1 through 3 were hit for 130 pips on the first trade, 220 pips on the second and third entry, and take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 240 pips on the fourth. Next day, we did a buy for gold at 33.13. Here's that entry. A buy at 33.48. Here's that entry. And another buy for 33.58. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 200 pips on the first buy, 180 pips for take profits 1 through 4 on the second buy, and a small gain of 40 pips hit and take profit 1 on that third entry. Then we did a sell at 33.04. Here's that entry, followed by another buy at 33.06. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 180 pips on the sell, and 180 pips take profits 1 through 3 on that buy. Next day, we did another series of buys. First buy entry at 33.22. Here's that entry. 33.28. Here's that entry at the lower part of the wick. And then 33.32. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 through 4 were hit for 180 pips on the first. Take profits 1 through 3 for 120 pips on the second, and take profits 1 and 2 for 60 pips on the third. A quick recap of our trades, plus a friendly reminder on the methods of how we trade and manage our trades to secure profits and also mitigate our risk, followed by another buy later on in the day at 32.78. And then a sell at 32.70. So here's the entry for the buy for a small gain of 20 pips. And here's the entry for a sell for a small gain of 40 pips. Next, we had a buy at 32.04, but I specifically said to wait for entry. Unfortunately, we had to disregard that signal because price never reached that level. And then we ended up calling out for a couple of sells at 32.22 and 32.30. So here are those 2 sells, which as you can see, small gains. Take profit 1 was hit for 40 pips on the first entry. Take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 60 pips on the second entry. And then we did another sell at 32.45. Here's that entry, which was a beautiful entry where take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 220 pips. Shortly after that, we called out for another sell at 32.34. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 through 4 were hit for 200 pips, which takes us to the following day on the 13th, where we started off the day yet again with another sell at 32.52. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 240 pips. All right, and then we called out a small buy at 32.43. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 50 pips. Here was just a quick update on the progress of that sell that we had taken here at 32.52. Then on the 14th, we started off with a couple of sells at 32.32 and 32.38. Here's the first entry. Here's our second entry. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 200 pips on the first trade and 230 pips on the second trade. Here's a couple of updates of those trades. But so this buy was a pending order that I had announced beforehand so that people could be ready, announcing a buy limit for gold at 31.67, and if price continued to drop down further, to set another limit at 31.60. As you can see from the chart, price came down as far as 31.67, activating our first buy limit, which, as you can see, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 230 pips. Next, we did a sell at 31.86. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 210 pips. And then, as you can see from the chart, we had a loss. This was as a result of the pending order for the buy limit at 31.60. Price came down, hit that level, but unfortunately broke through that level. Then we have a sell at 31.68. Here's that entry for a small gain of 50 pips, followed by a couple of buys at 31.73, 31.78. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 220 pips and 200 pips. And then in the midst of our trades, we also called out a scalp sell at 31.96, which, as you can see, we caught it in the midst of this candle during this wick. So it did come down slightly, hitting take profits 1 for 40 pips. And then shortly after that, we did another sell at 32.13. Here's that entry, which didn't work out well, resulting in a loss. We had a couple of announcements and some Zoom calls that we had that afternoon, followed by a buy at 32.43. Here's that entry where take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 90 pips. And then we had another buy at 32.20. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 and 2 were hit for another 90 pips. Now on the 16th, we had a sell at 32.11. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 200 pips. And then we announced for a buy at 31.70. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 through 3 were hit for 110 pips. Shortly after that, we called for another buy at 31.70. So same entry, but just in a different area of the market. So basically what happened here was after we hit take profits 1 through 3 on that first buy, price came down to lower levels and then rebounded, testing our entry once again. So we called out another buy at 31.70, which, as you can see, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 230 pips. Now, on the 19th, here we go. Let me just zoom out here. We started off the day with a buy at 32.40. Here's that entry. And then as price came and retested that entry once again, we called out for another buy at that same point. So our first entry hit take profits 1 and 2 for 90 pips. But unfortunately, our second entry didn't work out so well, hitting our stop loss. Now, as price came down to lower levels, we took a couple of buy entries here. So our first buy was here between 32.31 and 32.28. Here's that first entry. And again, as price fluctuated, we hit that same target once again for another entry. So as you can see from these very tall wicks, take profits 1 through 3 were hit for 110 pips on that first trade. Then as price came down to lower levels, retraced back up. That's where the second trade came into play for the same entry, where take profits 1 through 3 were hit for an additional 100 pips. Shortly after that, we did a sell at 32.26. Here's the entry, where as we scroll through the chart, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 230 pips, followed by a buy at 32.27. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 70 pips. Now, on the 20th, we started off the day with the series of buys. So the first buy was at 32.32. Second buy was at 32.37. Third buy was at 32.34. And then we did one more buy between 32.37 and 32.35. So here's the first entry, second entry, third entry, and fourth entry. Price rallied up, hitting take profits 1 through 5 on all trades for 230 and 250 pips each. Posted a little announcement about those trades and the beautiful spike that pushed all of our trades in profit. And then we did another buy at 32.95. Here's that entry right here, 32.95, and another buy at 32.88. So here's the first entry. Here's the second entry at 32.88. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 220 pips on the first and 220 pips on the second. Now, on the 21st of May, we started off the day with a buy at 33.10. and a sell at 33.10 again. So basically, here's our first entry for the buy. Price came up, hit and take profits 1 and 2 for about 100 pips. And then as price continued downward, we started to see some weakness. So instead of going for another buy, we decided to go for a sell, which was a good call because as you could see, price spiked down, hit and take profits 1 through 5 for 220 pips. Then I made an announcement if price was to come down even further, because as you can see with this long spike, if price were to come down further between 32.85 and 32.83 to look for a buy, and we sent out our take profit targets. But as you can see from the chart, price never hit those target points, so that trade was null and void. So then we did another sell at 33.03. Here's that entry where take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 80 pips. Later on that afternoon, we did a buy at 33.40. Here's that entry. Take profit 1 was hit for 50 pips. And then on the 22nd, we started off the day with a cluster of trades in this area of the market. So starting off with the buy at 32.92. So here's that entry right here. A buy at 32.85. Here's that entry. And then a buy at 32.95. Here's that entry. So first entry, second entry, third entry. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 230 pips on the first, 270 on the second, and 270 on the third. After those series of buys, then we called out a sell at 33.13. Here's that entry. And then another sell at 32.98. Here's that entry. So for the first sell, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 270 pips. And then take profits 1 through 4 were hit for 190 pips on that second sell. So we did a couple of updates for those trades. I also did an analysis video of these clusters of trades that we have called here. And basically, I just explained what I was looking at and why I called out those trades, which as you can see, worked out very well. And then later on in the afternoon, we called out for a sell at 32.97. Here's that entry. But as you can see from the announcements, I wasn't liking the structure. So I announced that people should close out the trade early. Instead of waiting for it to hit our stop loss, we closed the trade in a minor loss for 30 pips. And then we reevaluated our analysis, calling out for a buy at 32.98. Here's that entry where take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 220 pips. Next day on the 23rd, we started off with a couple of buys, a buy at 33.31 and 33.26. So here's the first and second entry. Now, these were big trades, so take profits 1 through 5 were hit for both, for 290 pips and 310 pips. And then we did a series of sells. So this was a beautiful setup here, folks. As you could see, we were very excited from the price action, price shooting up, pushing our trade deep in profit. And then we decided to call out for a sell. I had announced that this was going to be the last trade of the week to sell gold at 33.65. Here's that entry at the wick, which was a beautiful entry, by the way, folks, catching that wick where take profits at 1 through 5 were hit for 200 pips. And then we ended up doing one more sell, even though I called out that this was the last trade of the week. I wanted to do one more, so we did another sell here at 33.55. So here's that entry where take profits 1 through 5 were hit for an additional 250 pips. Here's the tally of those two trades. Again, like what I did earlier, posted a video of, just sharing my analysis. And then on the 27th, we started off the day with another series of buys in this region, a buy at 32.87, a buy at 3,300, and a buy at 33.08. So here's the first entry, second entry, and third entry. First trade, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 230 pips. Second trade didn't work out so well. As you can see, if I just zoom out here, you can see I wrote stop loss hit. So here was that entry at 3,300 where we were wicked out of our trade, which resulted in a loss, but we made up for it with another entry at a much lower price at 32.88. Here's that entry, which we caught at the wick, which resulted in take profits 1 through 5 being hit for 220 pips. Followed by another buy later on that afternoon between 33.08 and 33.06. Here's that entry where, as you can see, we had another similar scenario where we had a long wick right over here, just like on our second trade earlier that day. Fortunately, this did not stop out our trade where price rallied up, hit and take profits 1 and 2 for 90 pips. Next, we had a buy at 33.10, followed by a second entry targeting the same take profits. So here's the first entry, and here's the second entry where take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 80 pips on both trades. Then we reevaluated our analysis. So we sent out a sell at 33.07. Here's that entry where take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 240 pips. Then we attempted a buy at 32.98. Here's that entry where price just consolidated for a bit, hit and take profits just take profit 1 for 50 pips. And then we decided to, again, establish the fact that price was most likely going to go down. So we called out for another sell. So that was 32.97, which was this trade right here, where take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 240 pips. Posted some updates in regards to the progress of our trades with that massive drop that pushed our trades in profit, suffering only one loss from the trades we had called out from between yesterday and today. And then we called out for another buy at 32.52. Here's our entry, which, as you can see, price eventually rallied, hit and take profits 1 through 5 for 250 pips. Now, on the 29th, we started off the day with another couple of buys, a buy at 3,300 and 33.11. All right, so here's that first buy. Here's that second buy. Take profits 1 through 5. 1 through 5 were hit for 270 pips on the first buy, and 1 through 4 for 200 pips on the second buy. But before we called out our second buy, I made an announcement that I was looking to sell if price were to reach the level of 33.31 and 33.33. So because price had not reached that level yet, I was expecting price to climb to those levels. I announced to set a pending order. So we were able to capitalize on the first two buys, and then eventually price came up, wicked into our target of 33.31 as instructed on our sell limit order, which activated the sell. And then price dropped from that point forward, hit and take profits 1 through 5 for 270 pips. Now, in the midst of that sell limit that activated, we attempted a buy at 33.11. Here's that entry where take profit 1 was hit for 50 pips. Made a couple of announcements in regards to the progress of our previous trades, which brings us to the last day of the month, May 30th. We started the day with a sell at 32.96. Here's that entry, and another sell at 3,300. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 through 4 were hit for 160 pips on the first trade, and take profits 1 through 5 hit for 230 pips on that last trade, on that second sell. I posted another video in regards to my analysis for the trades that we called out, resulting in over 14,000 pips in profit for the month of May. Now, I want to clarify that the trades that we went over in today's video are my own personal trades. So remember, as a member of our free VIP, you also get access to our partner signals as well. So this is just showing you my personal trades. This does not include the signals and the profit gains from our partner signals as well, giving you more opportunities to follow, copy, and profit from our signals. So there you have it, folks. That's our tally for the month. If you like what you see and you want to learn more about our signals and other trading services, visit our website or click the link down below. And I look forward to seeing you on the inside of our community. Take care.